12 hours, like from here to here, then we have almost the same as what we measure in the wharf. But if we go up and look at higher frequencies and all the way up to waves with 1 hour wavelength, then we can see that we are missing a lot of fluctuations. So that's really the methodology here. So it's related to the important message is that how we actually generate the blue fluctuations here on top. That's actually calibrated depending on measured wind speeds. We have the great opportunity here to compare simulated wind power using this methodology to measure wind power from 1 year of measurements from wind farms, from 8 wind farms in South Africa. So summing up the measured wind power and summing up the simulated wind power, we then generated ramp rates, and because the measurements were only with 30 minutes resolutions, for comparison we needed to do the resolution that we had in the measurements. And this is done here, and here again we show a duration curve, and you can hardly see, but there is actually both a blue and a red curve here on top of each other. So I was actually very surprised that this was so good. We tried to do something similar in Denmark, which was not quite as good. It was very good, but not quite as good as this one. So I think this is very, very nice. And what it shows, the conclusion on this one is that using this methodology of adding the variability we are using with core wind, we can actually match very, very well the ramp rates. This is validated here. Only the 30-minute ramp rates, but we would need measurements with higher resolutions to do better than that. So the problem here is not really having the simulations, but having the measurements to do the validation. So now we are ready. We have the power curves, and we have also validated the models based on the historical data. So now we are ready to look into the future. So what we did was we had these 3 cases: the reference, past case, 2014, and also what are the planned wind farms in South Africa, and we also call it 2020 case. And then we have a future case, what is to be considered in the grid development plans. So it becomes, of course, the further we go into the future, more and more uncertain. To describe those scenarios, here is some main data for the scenarios in this table. 2014 it's very difficult to say which number to put here because there was a huge development during 2014, and this is actually somewhere in the middle, I think. But for the future scenarios, we end up with 7.4 gigawatts in 2025. Now, if you want to know how much penetration this is, and now we should be careful because people talk about penetration and percentage, but it's important that we agree on the method that we measure it. Penetration here is, what we mean is how big a share of the electricity production is generated by this wind. So it's not the instantaneous penetration, it's the energy penetration that we talk about. In Denmark we are at 42 for comparison. So the important thing to notice here is that, well, these scenarios, when we look at the impact of the ramping of the variability, then we have relatively small penetration levels still in the South African system. This, of course, depends on what is the scenarios for the consumption, and there we looked into official standards. Another thing I should mention here is actually, if we heard yesterday that the capacity factor is 40% for wind in South Africa. what we measured was slightly below, to be a little ironic. It was actually only 26 at this point. We believe it will be higher in the future, but we should also be careful not to promise more than we can actually expect here. So we were also looking at the different technologies and having larger rotors, what would be the impact. And of course, having larger rotors it would enable us to have higher capacity factors. The rotors in South Africa are actually relatively large already compared to international standards. That's also the point with this 26%. Okay, so now we did it again, but this is only simulations, the ramp rate statistics, and here we have, I believe we were using the 10-minute ramp rates here. Sorry, yeah, it's per unit per 10 minutes. So what we see here is for the different scenario years, and it's the relative ones, so it's normalized with the installed capacity of the wind. So what happens is that you can see the more wind we install, then the relative ramp rates are decreasing, and this is simply because of the smoothing, spatial smoothing effect, which is particularly big from 14 to 20, but there's also something from 2020 to 25. It's because the smoothing somehow saturates when you get more installed. So now we wanted to have a look into what this would actually mean to the use of reserves in the South African power system, the wind ramping here and the wind uncertainties. So we were, together with Eskom, we were looking at what are the different categories, and Eskom has a very nice document telling these categories of reserves. There are 5 different categories. The first one is the instantaneous reserves. This is what is very often referred to as primary reserves. So that's where you have the governor response, which is maximum already after 10 seconds, so this is very fast response. This category should not really be affected by variability in wind, because wind is varying relatively slow. So we are not really focusing on that. Then they have something they call regulating reserves, and this is what is associated with the AGC control. So this is automatic secondary reserves, or in the European context, it would be frequency regulation reserves, or automatic frequency regulation reserves. So, and then we have the 10-minute reserves, which are manual, and they are, come back to that, but they are much less costly than the regulating reserves. So which of those categories that we actually activate, this is an important thing for the costs of the frequency control in the system. We want to use more of the cheap and less of the expensive, of course. And then there are 2 other categories of emergency and also supplemental reserves, and they are not really considered in this study. So first, we look at the regulating reserves requirements. That was number 2 on the list. That this was the automatic reserves, the AGC reserves. And what it says in the South African Ancillary Service requirements here is that the regulating reserves, they should be sufficient to cover the load variations within an hour. So this is not from hour to hour, but what happens within the hour. This is a nice definition. It's really related also to what are the ramp rates, you can say, but not of the wind, but of the loads. So before we started, Eskom had already done very nice studies here, taking only the loads into account according to this requirement here, and they found different values for summer and winter periods, because of course the consumption is different in those periods. and we see a development here, which is first of all, I believe, because the consumption is increasing. So that will cause an increase in the need for reserves in this study. Now, if we look at wind power in the system, then we should not only look at the consumption, but we should look at the residual load, which is the consumption minus the wind generation. And that means that we will have more fluctuations in the residual load that we have in the consumption load. How much is another question? That's actually what we're looking at here. But in principle, both loads and wind are contributing here, and the correlation is very, very small. We actually assume it is zero. Not the correlation between the wind and the loads, but the correlation between the ramp rates in wind and the 10-minute ramp rates in wind and the 10-minute ramp rates in loads. I think it's technically very sound to assume that they are not correlated. So I will not go into the details of how we did that. You can read that in the paper. But to go directly to the result, the result is that with the penetration level we have in South Africa, which was 5%, remember, keep that in mind, the increase, if we take wind into account, is only something like 2.4% of the use of reserves. This is a nice and not very unexpected result, actually. So right now it's not necessary with these penetration levels to take the wind variability into account with the reserves, but in the future it should be considered, and it's actually straightforward to do it, to look at the residual load rather than only the consumption. Of course, on top of this comes the PV also, but that was not included in this study. PV here is very predictable because also of the nice weather we have here in South Africa. So the last point is regarding forecasts, and that's actually related to how the relation between the two different categories of reserves. In Denmark, the Danish TSO, you will hear more of this from Peter later. They are using forecasts to balance the system, and today it's before the hour of operation. And core wind software can also be, and that has been done actually in a cooperation with Energinet. We have expanded the fluctuations simulation here in core wind with simulations of forecasts, and that's actually also to look at how much is the imbalance at the different times, and also what is the value of doing this balancing before the hour of operation. The power is traded on a day-ahead basis in the first time, and then that, of course, creates imbalances. But this is what Energinet is balancing and reducing this uncertainty by using an hour-ahead forecast. They are the day-ahead forecasts are the smooth one here, comes directly from next model. The reason why the hour-ahead forecasts are a little more, there are some steps here, it's because they are done like 45 minutes before, at least in the simulations here, before the hour of operation. So there are discontinuities from 1 hour to another. So this is a new forecast, comes every hour, and that will start from a different point. So there are some steps here. If we look at we were using these simulations also in South Africa for the cases that we have here, and we were comparing here how much we could reduce the how much we can reduce the real-time imbalance with using this hour-ahead forecast. But I have to say, I mean, we probably underestimate it in this case, and we are doing some improvements right now also on the Poul software. But the point is that you can actually have a very significant and in reality higher than this, I think, reduction of the real-time error you have in the system if you make this overhead balancing in your system. So what are the conclusions? We consider this work here in the South African system as a pilot application of forwind methodology, not only to simulate the correlated wind power, but also to assess needs for reserves in the system. Main conclusions of the work are that we have actually validated using the real data that we are capable of simulating with very high quality ramp or time series which have ramp rate statistics that are very likely the ones that we measure. Also, we have the smoothing effect was shown here. If we normalize with the installed wind power capacity, we get a reduction of the ramp rates and the forecast errors. With this moderate 5% wind power penetration, we also concluded that the impact of wind power fluctuations on reserves are very small. And then the last one here is that the overhead balancing, it leads to a significant reduction of the need for the expensive automatic reserves. Of course, it should still be balanced, but then it can be balanced with the manual reserves instead of the automatic reserves if you use that. Okay, that was mine.
Thanks very much, Paul.